Hi, everyone. Welcome. It's 1 o'clock. Matt, you can take it away whenever you're ready.
All right, sounds good. Appreciate it, Jerry. We're here for the latest climate webinar, May 2026. All the focus is on drought conditions right now. Sure, we got some rainfall the past couple of weeks, but we need a lot more going forward. So, start out just how we always progress. This webinar series is presented by the Kentucky Climate Center at WKU in partnership with NIDIS and in coordination with the Midwest Drought Early Warning System. Several partners bring this webinar together. UK Ag Weather Center, Kentucky Division of Water, Kentucky Climate Center, Kentucky MESNet down there at WKU. This webinar or I should say the first Thursday of every month, same time, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Central. Next one is scheduled for June 4th, 2026. So hopefully we've had a few significant rainfall events by the time of that webinar, but we are recording. It's available for viewing afterwards on the Kentucky Climate Center's YouTube channel. But there, just get started. It was another dry month of April. It actually made 6 straight months of below normal rainfall here in the Bluegrass State. And I wanted to add this picture. This is from the Kentucky MESNet. They posted on their social media feeds from Todd County. So on April 16, 2026. So planting season has progressed rapidly this year. In fact, I've been talking to some farmers across Western and Central Kentucky. They're completely done. It's May 7th. It's really hard to believe. It's a 180-degree turn from where we were at last year. We'll get more into that later, but it's been a little wild how dry it's been to start the growing season. In fact, took this picture here. Um, this is just a bunch of dust being kicked up by some high winds moving through the area about mid-April. So we'll see this during the fall months, September, October, going into November, especially as we're getting into harvest season, kicking up dust in that fashion. But seeing this kind of imagery in April is again quite wild. So why are we seeing all that dust? Well, it's been very dry here recently. We did have some precipitation the past 14 days. Over here on the left, looking at accumulated precipitation, some folks up in the northern bluegrass saw 4 or 5 inches of precipitation, but those totals drastically decrease as you move southeast across the state into eastern Kentucky. Some only got a half inch to 1 inch going out to Western Kentucky, South Central Kentucky that really needed the rainfall. Some places got decent rainfall, 3 to 4 inches over the past 2 weeks. Others kind of missed out. So, still significant rainfall across the area. We just need a lot more following 6 straight months of below normal rainfall. Moving forward, looking at the past month, April 1st through April 30th, it was another dry month, as I mentioned earlier. Average of 3 inches across the state, according to the Midwestern Regional Climate Center. Felt like we got decent rainfall, but this is also supposed to be our wettest season of the year between April and May, and it's simply not happening again. So, average of 3 inches across the state, that's about 1 3/4 of an inch below normal. So, we just keep on adding to the deficits since our winter season. Just looking at departure from normal over there on the right, average of 3 inches across the state. Most of the state running 1 to 2+ inches below normal, 2 to 3+ inches as you move into that Lake Cumberland region over there in southeastern portions of Kentucky. So going back 90 days overall, well below normal rainfall yet again. I know Chip and Jerry have mentioned this on previous webinars, but 5 to 10 inches on average across the state over the past 90 days. This goes back into early February. And we look at those departures from normal over on the right side of the screen. Some in South Central Kentucky, Western Kentucky, 6 to 8+ inches below normal over that time span. So, in years past, we went through the winter season. I believe it's 8 of the past 10 winter seasons have seen above normal rainfall. Just so happened this year was one of those where we went in the opposite direction. And December through February, the average state precipitation was about 5.5 inches below normal. We've continued that below normal trend heading into the spring season this year. Now, I want to take this data back all the way through November. This is 6 straight months of below normal rainfall, November through April. Looking at the map on the left, some places across western, south central Kentucky, 10 to 14 inches of precipitation, total liquid equivalent precipitation. Simply not enough. Look at departure from normal over on the right. Those areas running 10+ inches below normal over that 6 month time span. Some are actually in the pink area right there of 14+ inches below normal. We haven't seen this for quite some time, a hydrological drought at that. So, 2012, a lot of people look back. Are we going into a 2012 drought? Are we going into a 2007 drought? Neither of those years actually started this dry. So, we're kind of in historical territory. So, how dry has it been? Now, the April data I just mentioned, it is not official yet. So I didn't quite want to make a top 10 driest November to April, top 10 driest on record at this point. So I'll leave that up to Jerry or Chip once we go into next month. But looking at these tables here, table on the left is the top 10 driest November to March periods in Kentucky history. 2025 to 26 sits at number 3. This is over 130 years in the record books. We sit at number 3 in 25-26. So over that period, the state averaged 12.35 inches of precipitation, which is almost 8 inches below normal, 61% of normal also. Now looking at the table over on the right, this is the top 10 driest November to March periods for Western Kentucky only, the Western Kentucky Climate Division. Overall, it's the all-time driest November to March period they've ever seen since 1895. So we go from Kentucky averaging 12.35 inches over that period to Western Kentucky only averaging 9.61 inches over that period, which is good for an average of almost 12 inches below normal over that time period. So well below normal precipitation. Haven't seen this in quite some time. You look over at Western Kentucky, number 2 on that list is at 10.98 inches, and that happened over a century ago. So pretty rare territory where we're sitting in 25-26. Now, this is just preliminary, but over on the left, if we take the Kentucky April average of 3 inches across the state, just looking at the preliminary rankings, it would be the second driest November to April on record. Looking over on the right, if we add the Western Kentucky April average of 3.38 inches, it would still be the all-time driest November to April on record, and that's by a fairly wide margin. So drought conditions are on the rise. So before we go on to temperatures and whatnot, I wanted to take a look at severe weather real quick. Of course, with a dry year, we're going to have a lack of severe weather, and that's been the case in 2026 thus far. This table or chart over here, graph, I should say, over here on the left came from the Iowa Environmental Mesonet. They got an awesome system. You guys can play around and make these graphics also. But this is looking at the accumulated number of tornado warnings issued by National Weather Service offices within the state of Kentucky for every year going back to, I believe it was 1986. Now, I don't know if you can see my pointer on here. It's a little hard to see, but you go to May and 2026 is down here near the bottom. So it's been a relatively tame year in terms of severe severe weather that goes along with the dry conditions we've seen throughout the year thus far. And I'll take that. I'll completely take that. Sure, I want some extra precipitation, but I definitely don't want to see the severe weather, especially considering the disasters we've seen over the past decade in Kentucky. It's not to say we didn't have any severe weather. There were two main events. One was on April 16th, just some damaging winds across western Kentucky. But the main event, I should say, was April 27th and 28th. It came in a couple rounds. There's one image up in the upper right-hand corner from Shelby County, their measurement station there, of a shelf cloud starting to enter the region. Anytime you see one of those shelf clouds, you're more than likely going to see a heavy gust of wind right behind it. So down to the right is the confirmed tornadoes and damaging winds on April 27th, 28th. There were several, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 confirmed weak tornadoes. Strongest one was at EF1. So I would say we got lucky with this event. You might recall ahead of this severe weather, there was a moderate risk issued from the Storm Prediction Center for Western Kentucky. There was a large area of enhanced risk for severe weather across Western and Central Kentucky. And there was actually a warm layer aloft that prevented these storms from building to what they could have been. So most of the ingredients were there for a major severe weather outbreak, but sometimes Mother Nature says otherwise, and everything didn't quite come together in this event, but I'll absolutely take that. So there was a possibility EF2, EF3, maybe even stronger tornadoes during this event, with all that info come from the National Weather Service and Storm Prediction Center. But again, didn't quite all come together. We'll take it. So severe thunderstorm warnings in general, changes graphic over on the left, still 2026 down here in the lower portions of this graphic. So we've had under 200 severe thunderstorm warnings issued across the Bluegrass State throughout 2026, and we'll take it that way. Looking at temperatures, so again, preliminary, it was the warmest April ever recorded. Average temperature across the state of Kentucky was 7 degrees above normal. This continued on from a very warm March. March was the fourth warmest March on record in Kentucky history, again, going back to 1895. April, much of the same. Looks like it's going to be the all-time warmest April on record. And just look at these maps here. Didn't matter if it was maximum temperatures or if it was minimum temperatures at night. It was warm no matter how you looked at it. So these temperatures got the growing season started much earlier than normal. I was reading a Kentucky Fruit Facts newsletter from our extension team here at UK, and they were talking about 2 to 3 weeks ahead of normal this year in terms of fruit development, you name it. So that's all continued into April. Really helped us in agriculture. Luckily, we didn't necessarily see the major devastating freezes and like we've seen in years past. So just looking another aspect of temperature, looking at growing degree day accumulations. This comes from the Midwestern Regional Climate Center. Over on the left, this is looking at a growing degree day accumulations from normal between April 1st and May 5th. We are running above normal with those above normal temperatures we saw throughout the month of April. But since we've changed the calendar to May, of course, it's gotten pretty seasonably cool outside. Nothing major. Of course, Derby Day was a fairly cool one with highs only getting the 60s, but nothing in the way of, I'll say, devastatingly cold temperatures. But growing degree day accumulations running below normal thus far through the month of May. Now, looking at some of the impacts of these dry conditions we've seen recently, first looking at stream flows, I took a screenshot of this earlier this morning, but you see some green, you see some red. Of course, we've seen some decent rainfall the past 2 weeks, so some of these stream flows are going to be quick to respond to that rainfall. But still, there's several stations, numerous stations across the state of Kentucky that are running much below normal, or some are at all-time low stream flows for this time of year. Now, I didn't include in this presentation, but I got another screenshot from a couple weeks ago of this exact map, and all these circles you see on here were predominantly in that dark red to light red shade. So 2 weeks ago, most of the state was running much below normal or seeing all-time lows for this time of year. So this has been an issue in 2026. Soil moisture, same thing. Looking over on the left, calculated soil moisture anomaly, running below normal for most of the state. Northern half of the state has been a little bit wetter compared to the southern half, so you're seeing that change on this map. Looking at the top 1 meter of soil moisture anomaly, most of the state running anywhere from 20 to 40+% below normal over there on the right. Looking at data from the latest crop progress report released on May 4th, looking at Kentucky there, subsoil moisture rated 19% very short across the Bluegrass State, 43% short, and only 38% adequate. There is no sort of percentage in that surplus category. So something we don't want to see going into the warmer months of the year. Over 60% of the state in the very short to short category, and that's subsoil moisture. If I change this to topsoil moisture, kind of in the same boat. 56% of the state in the very short to short category. Topsoil moisture is going to be quicker to respond to these rainfall events we've seen the past couple of weeks, but only 43% in that adequate category. Looking at soil moisture, according to the Kentucky Mesnet, Chip Zimmer with the Division of Water, he's on this call today. He shared these images with us earlier this week ahead of putting the state map together for the U.S. Drought Monitor. Graves County up there on the top, Casey County on the bottom. This data goes all the way back to early February. You got soil moisture at varying depths here. Gray there at 2 inches, blue at 4 inches, going all the way to yellow at 40 inches. And 40 inches staying somewhat level up there in Graves County. You're seeing the biggest changes there in the 2 to 4 inch level, which is what we would expect, even go to 8 inches. Going down there to Casey County, you're starting to see no improvement at the deeper levels, and you're starting to see it keep falling off. So we need to recharge this soil moisture going to the warmer months, even those deeper soil moisture profiles, and we're not necessarily seeing it at this point. Moving a little farther east across the state, Fayette County up there on top. Again, you're seeing those deeper soil moisture profiles in gold and red going in the wrong direction, keeps on diminishing since February. And sure, we see some heavy rainfall events. We'll see those shallower soil moisture profiles respond, but they're pretty quick to diminish at the same point in time also. And Owsley County, same sort of thing. Maybe the deeper soil moisture profile is holding a little bit more steady, but yeah, focus will be on those shallower moisture profiles moving forward. So here's the latest update to the U.S. Drought Monitor. Quite a bit of the United States has some amount of drought coverage. So overall, across the U.S., about 61% of the US has shown some amount of drought intensity, whether that's moderate, severe, extreme, or exceptional drought conditions. And here in Kentucky, we are right there, part of it. You go north, Indiana, Illinois, Missouri, Ohio, they were in decently bad shape about a month or so ago, but they've had significant rainfall recently. We haven't necessarily gotten it. So, taking a closer look, here's a look at the Midwest Drought Monitor. The picture on the left from March 31st, and the latest image over on the right from May 5th, released today on May 7th. So, in Kentucky and even farther to the north, large portion of the Midwest experienced abnormally dry, moderate drought conditions on March 31st, maybe even some severe drought and extreme drought up there in northwestern Ohio. But since then, we've seen a ton of improvement to our north, and we've went in the total opposite direction. So portions of Kentucky, a large portion of western and south central Kentucky moved into severe or extreme drought conditions. We've seen an upgrade over the past week, or I'm sorry, the past month. Now, let's see, 5.88%. Maybe I got the wrong. Oh, that's the Midwest. Sorry. Let's focus in on Kentucky now. I'm sorry. I was looking at the percentages. I was confusing myself. So now over 54% of the state is included in the severe to extreme drought category, 16.77%. In the extreme drought category, that's the highest coverage we've seen since 2016. You might recall 2016, that was a fall drought. That was whenever we had all the wildfires across eastern Kentucky and extending down into the Gatlinburg area and eastern Tennessee. But in about 1 month's time, 5 weeks' time, you can see the major changes we've seen across Kentucky. So we're going into the warmer months of the year. We'll see where this goes. But something interesting, I put it in my ag weather update here recently. If you go back to the last update of April, it was the highest drought coverage that's ever been seen during the month of April from the U.S. Drought Monitor. So the U.S. Drought Monitor has been around since the year 2000. We've gone 26 years now. We've never seen this amount of drought coverage in Kentucky. So that's saying something. And kind of a precursor. Hopefully, it's not a precursor of what's to come, but we have to look at it that way. So this is our change maps. Looking at the past 4 weeks over on the left, most of the states seen 1 to 2 class degradations. But if we go back the past 6 months, you see a lot of brown and tan colors across the southeast there. And Kentucky is right there in the thick of it. Some have seen a 4-class degradation across western and south central Kentucky. That's those areas of extreme drought. Areas to our north, Corn Belt, whatnot, starting to look a little better in Illinois, Indiana, Missouri, and Iowa. Now, just look at the U.S. Drought Monitor, and before we go any further, I know there's been a lot of questions like, Matt, are we expecting a 2007, 2012 like drought in the state of Kentucky this year? Now, that's a little hard to say at this point. April and May are notoriously our wettest season of the year. And I was hoping April was going to maybe at least start the process of turning things around. And didn't necessarily happen this year. We only averaged 3 inches across the state. So this is looking at data, top 10 driest years on record for Western Kentucky over there on the left. That was between November and March. Here over on the right, I'm adding April and May data. but I wanted to look at what the peak summer drought intensity was moving into summer for all these years over here on the left. So drought monitor only goes back to the year 2000. So I couldn't use the US drought monitor for most of these. I had to look at the Palmer Drought Index and what it said, or what the Palmer Drought Severity Index went into for each of these years in the past. There were several years where we had extreme drought conditions in place. That was the case for 1941. It was the case for 1931, and it was the case for 1936. So some of these cases we're talking about, what, 90 years ago. So it's been a while. There's other times where we've just had periods of moderate drought pop up throughout the summer season. You guys know as well as I do, you go 2 or 3 weeks with pretty dry conditions during summer months, you're going to have moderate drought conditions pop up. Now, sometimes, usually, that'll be followed by a decent rainfall event. Will improve. But then maybe later in the summer season, we see moderate drought pop back up again. So 5 of these years over on the left, we had fluctuating levels of drought throughout the summer season. 3 of those went into extreme drought. One in 1981, we actually saw several months of above normal rainfall. But what I want to point out, again, no 2 droughts are the same. So I want to say we kind of got to take it with a grain of salt. But then again, it's been extremely dry here recently. But all 3 of those years that went to extreme drought, they had below normal rainfall continue into April and May. And April, below normal. We'll see what May brings. We'll look at the forecasts and outlooks here in a bit. So I just sent out ag weather update a couple hours ago, I guess it was. And I'm just telling folks, like, start thinking about the possibility of something of an extreme drought really taking hold across the area this summer. So it's in the realm of possibility and something we might want to plan for on the agricultural side or even the hydrological side. So Chip's been sending out updates across the state. This is a hydrological drought right now. We look across the area. In most cases, the grass is completely green. I'm still mowing 4 or 5 days a week. It is the spring season, but the topsoil moisture is there. The problem is we've had deficits pile up since last November, and we're starting to see the hydrological impacts the past month or two really start to increase. So over on the left, this was taken from the city of Liberty, Kentucky, but their water levels in Lake Liberty are getting dangerously low. So some of these supply lakes, we look at Harris Lake up there in the middle. That was from Chip here on the call. And then Ben Rudy from Fulton County. Let's see, has Ben on today? I guess I don't see him on here, but he sent me this picture earlier in April from I might say this wrong, but Hamby Pond over there in Fulton County. But in all 3 pictures, you can see the deficits are starting to pile up and they're starting to impact water supplies. Lake Liberty has water conservation measures in place. Some of those supply lakes at 50 to 60% capacity. Groundwater supplies are becoming a concern too. So this is going to be something we're watching as we head into the warmer summer months. Sure, you see this during the fall season, maybe the late summer months, but having this occur in April and May, it's a little alarming. So I'm sure Chip will comment more about this as we move forward throughout the presentation. So in addition, looking at ag impacts, it's been a fairly good year for agriculture thus far. We'll see if it stays that way, but we had a warm month of March. We had a warm month of April. These farmers, producers were able to get in the fields a lot sooner. It was dry, so soil conditions were pretty ripe for planting, and farmers were in the fields well into March, getting their fields planted and whatnot. Soil temperatures were just about perfect. This is from March through early May. Looking at 2-inch soil temperatures there, even the 4-inch soil temperatures running predominantly in the 60s for a good period of time over this 2-month period. So it was perfect planting conditions for the most part. And again, a lot of farmers may be done at this point. I know some farmers are. So that's been kind of nice. There was some worry, we need some significant rainfall on these newly planted grain crops. And we've gotten that. We've gotten that timely rainfall the past couple of weeks. So we'll see where it goes from here. Just to show you how much progress we've made, this is from the USDA Crop Progress Report released on May 4th. And this is the percentage of corn planted for states across the region. As of May 3rd, 2026, 77% of corn across the state is in the ground. That's quite the percentage. Just to put this in perspective, the 5-year average between 2021 and 2025 was 46%. So we're running 30% ahead of schedule. We compare this back to 2025 and we were only at 38% planted. So we've basically doubled where we were at in 2025. 2025 was a very wet year for Kentucky farmers, and we're on the opposite side of the spectrum in 2026. Changes to corn emerged. In 2025, 17% of corn had emerged from the ground. May 3rd, 2026, we're sitting at 45%. Looking at soybeans planted, 2025, we were sitting at 26% planted. 2026, we're sitting at 61%. So again, we're doubling that percentage from last year, and average for this time of year is 26%. So a lot of farmers, a lot of producers will take this. We don't have to worry about planting getting delayed this year, and it doesn't look like we have any major rainfall events that would result in a replanting here anytime soon. Pasture and rain condition, maybe something we don't necessarily want to see. This is condition. 5% of pasture in Kentucky is rated in the very poor category, 15% in the poor category, 38% fair, 39% good, and only 3% excellent. So we want to see these percentages move over to the right, but that's not necessarily the case right now. So something kind of watching, pasture condition, Kentucky, not starting out in a great spot. This is a percentage in the good to excellent category as we sit here in early May compared to 22 through 25. We're well behind. We look at 22 through 25, we're in that 60 to 80% range in the good to excellent category at this time of year. May, not so much. So there is some concern about this first harvest moving forward. 50% of total seasonal yield for cool season grasses comes from this first harvest. Chip mentioned in some previous updates for the U.S. Drought Monitor, some hay already being fed, and that's something we don't typically see until late summer going into the early fall months. So something to watch. Looking at winter wheat, you see kind of that same condition level we saw with pastures. 2026 up there at the top, rated about 40% in the good to excellent category compared to previous years. We're well behind at this point. So I even got this picture from Cam. He works with us at UK in the corn and soybean variety testing, but They had irrigation going across Western Kentucky back in the middle of April. So something you don't typically see. Something that was a bit of an impact here recently, that strong cold front moved through the state and we had seasonally cool temperatures in place to start May. Um, these were the low temperatures as of this past Sunday morning across Kentucky. Most got into the low to mid 30s. We had a few stations getting to the upper 20s, but for the most part, everyone in the mid to upper 30s. I've heard some row crops impacted, some not. I know I covered all my tomato plants and early green beans and zucchini plants, and they seem to make it through all right. But I did forget to cover some of my flowers in the backyard, and we'll just say, yeah, they're done. I'm going to have to replant those. So, um, moving forward, this is from the Vegetation Impact Program, looking at the chance of freezing temperatures after May 6th. Very, very low probability. Most are in that orange, maybe yellow category, and some in the red category in Western Kentucky. Less than a 1% chance of seeing freezing temperatures at this point in the year. So I took this from Dr. Chad Lee from his page on X, but he mentioned for some of those small corn plants out there, they might look terrible, but with the growing points still possibly below ground, they will recover. So some good news. Moving forward, precipitation forecast over the upcoming week. We're looking at anywhere from a quarter inch to an inch plus across the state of Kentucky. I would love if we had some of those red shades move into the state of Kentucky that are down there in Mississippi, Alabama, but it's simply not happening this week. Moving on to the outlooks, the 6 to 10 day outlooks valid for May 12th through the 16th. Favors near normal temperatures for this time of the year. So probably mid 70s, maybe some upper 70s out across Western and South Central Kentucky. The higher confidence for above normal temperatures is located out there across the western half of the United States. Looking at precipitation, slightly above normal confidence for above normal rainfall, but nothing very significant. Whenever I'm looking at these outlooks and we're wanting to at least start in fixing this hydrological drought situation, we want these dark green shades over our region. That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a ton of rainfall, but usually more times than not, it does. 8 to 14 day temperature and precipitation outlook. It looks like we're going to start warming up as we go into the third week of May, but looking at precipitation, still stays in that near normal category for the most part for this time of year. Near normal for May is fine. That's a pretty good dose of rainfall. But simply speaking, in terms of that hydrological situation, we need a lot more than near normal this year. Moving into the week to 3 and 4 temperature outlook and precipitation outlook, May 16th through the 29th. Looking at above normal temperatures remaining across the area, but we're starting to see that below, where it's kind of split, I should say, equal chances for above, below normal, or above normal precipitation across the western half of the state. But we're starting to see a pretty decently dark signature there for below normal rainfall across the eastern half of the state. So something we don't want to see. Western Kentucky has been the focus for this below normal rainfall recently, but now this is showing possibility of eastern half of the state and the bluegrass trending drier over the second half of May. For May as a whole, equal chances for precipitation going above, near, or below normal. But with this cooler stretch to start the month, the CPC is leaning toward below normal temperatures overall for the month of May. Going out the next 3 months, trending toward above normal temperatures for May, June, July, and equal chances in terms of precipitation. A little later into the year, focus is going to start leaning toward El Nino. So we are now going into ENSO neutral conditions heading into the spring months, but the probability for El Nino really increases as we go into the fall and early winter months later this year. What's interesting, or at least I think is interesting, there is at least some decent odds for a strong El Nino last year, this upcoming winter season. There's at least a 1 in 4 chance at this point. Unfortunately, an El Nino during the winter season means drier conditions for the state of Kentucky. So hope is we see some decent rainfall here fairly soon, and some decent rainfall that's going to occur over the course of months and not just days. So the monthly stream flow outlook has near normal flows across the eastern half of the state, below normal flows across the western half. I tend personally don't put a lot into these stream flow outlooks. If we go the rest of the month and it's below normal rainfall, probably going to see more of those orange or maybe even red colors on this map. U.S. monthly drought outlook for May keeps this drought in place across the majority of the bluegrass state. And it's kind of wild. You don't see this much brown color across most of the U.S. at this time of year, but they're thinking it's going to stay that way for the Southeast, most of the Southeast, and across the western half of the United States. Significant wildland fire potential looking good in Kentucky for May 2026 and June 2026. But again, we've had times this past month, we've had fire weather conditions, very low relative humidity. The dry fuels were there. We've had some issues not only in Eastern Kentucky, but across Western Kentucky too. So something to watch moving forward. So that's where I'm going to close it up at. I know we went a little longer this month. There was a lot to talk about. Just in summary, 6 straight months of below normal rainfall. We got hydrological drought in place. Ag, not necessarily seeing a lot of the impacts right now, but with the soil moisture profile as it is, we'll see how it progresses as we go into summer months. I'm trying to take a glass half full attitude moving forward, but we need some pretty decent rainfall and a lot of rainfall the next few months. Saw our all-time warmest April on record, followed our top 5 warmest March on record. Drought situation is not going to be fixed with one event. We need multiple major events. Forecasts and outlooks. We got rainfall in the forecast. That's a good thing. We need a lot more. And El Nino developing towards the end of the year. So our next scheduled webinar, June 4th. If you have any feedback or if you have any questions, you want to send us an email, all 4 of us, our email's over there on the right. And lastly, I'll just close up. No Shane put this on social media recently. Congratulations to the Kentucky Mesnet. They officially have site number 85. It was added in Trimble County. So it's great to see these numbers keep going up, up, and up. And yeah, so I'm looking forward to Kentucky Mesnet breaking that century mark here in the near future. So with that, I'll open it up for discussion, guys.
Great job, Matt. I just want to comment on the April temperatures. If I know this is preliminary, but it looked like we annihilated the old record. We were 7 degrees above normal, which I think the old record was 5 degrees. So, beating out a monthly record by 2 degrees is pretty crazy. But it shows how warm it was, for sure.
Very significant stuff. It's been wild the past week just looking at all the statistics, and we're in a pretty unique situation right now, that's for sure. So I meant to, Chip, is there anything you want to add in terms of the hydrological drought situation across Kentucky?
You
Or
mean,
maybe
let me unmute him. Yeah.
maybe Chip left the room for a second.
No, I
Yeah.
couldn't unmute myself. I was deemed troublemaker. Um, yeah, it doesn't look good right now. Especially um we saw a little jump in stream flows, especially like in urban areas, Louisville, Lexington, with this rain. But overall, stream flows are in pretty bad shape right now. And without having this reservoir of groundwater that we normally pick up this time of year, it really is going to leave the streams and rivers really vulnerable to if this continues or any drought, any dryness in the summer and fall, it's really going to leave them vulnerable. So, yeah, we need rain, we need lots of it, and we need it to continue. But the only saving grace right now is, well, El Niños tend to be dry in the fall and winter. That summer leading into an El Niño tends to be wet around here. We get a lot of moisture coming in off the Pacific, off that tropical or subtropical jet, and it tends to have a wet summer really across the entire US. So fingers crossed.
I'm hoping for the best. I've been talking to a lot of folks recently, and again, it, the agricultural side. I don't want to say it's fine right now. Of course, we got to look at pastures and our first hay cutting moving forward, but for the most part, agriculture is in decent shape, and a lot of folks are looking at all the green grass across Kentucky. Oh yeah, we're in a good spot, but it seems like it's almost kind of hiding in the background. And I'm hoping we get that rainfall because that heat is about a month away. I'm hoping we don't get a head start during the month of May. Outlooks are kind of leaning toward above normal temperatures. We'll see. But head start in the May is the last thing we need right now.
Yeah, at the beginning of the winter, we were heading into a La Nina, and you have these expectations that you're going to get above normal rainfall through the winter. And then, once that doesn't pan out, now we're looking down the barrel of an El Nino coming. And it's a little different situation than we had last fall, even though we were dried in. But we'll see.
100%. Yep.
It does seem to be like the core of the drought is shifting east a bit. At least it seems like in the last month or so, we've had a little bit of uh, easement across the Jackson Purchase area. We've had some nice rain totals the last few days, but that really seems to have petered out across south central, eastern Kentucky areas. And I know some of the water management areas there are maybe in a little worse shape just because of topography and their situations.
And something to add is that severe weather event that was on the table April 27th, 28th. We were expecting a lot of rainfall with that event too, like 2 to 3+ inches, if I remember right. And it just didn't pan out. So, well, now I'm seeing Chip mention in the chat box that same thing too. So, yeah.
Yeah.
This last rain event also was pretty underwhelming. Um, Again, places out, I guess that'd be like Union County, Crittenden County out there did pretty good, but again, central Kentucky got, a half inch of rain, and again they were talking about an inch or more. So that's really been the case all winter and spring. Is these systems are just underperforming over and over and over again, and we can't seem to break that trend.
In Ohio County, just kind of give you an agricultural perspective. I've been in this county for 38 years and I've never seen a crop planted as fast as it got planted this year. Of course, when you have no rain in April, you can plant a lot of crop real quick. And but with that said, it's having an impact. I mean, the crop came out, it did have enough moisture. It came out of the ground quick. It was up in 5 to 7 days on corn and soybeans. Of course, in today's world, we start the bean planter the same time we start the corn planter nowadays. And so they were all planted at the same time. They came up good. But I can tell you, this corn does not have a good color. It's not got enough moisture to reach out there and get what it needs to grow properly. And it is not jumping out of the ground and really growing fast this year. So it's starting to have an impact upon these crops at this point. Probably will not impact the yield, but it's impacting how it's growing. The pastures and hay fields are about half the growth that they normally have at this time of year. 2 years ago, when we had a wet spring, orchard grass was waist to chest high. This year, it's barely knee high this year, and it's already headed out. So it's made its yield for the spring and everything. So hay crop is going to be about 50 to 60% of what it normally is out here. So it's having an impact, but we are green and we are hanging on right now. But if we don't, I would suspect if we don't average an inch of rain through the summer per week, it's going to get ugly real quick in Western Kentucky. And Ohio County's sitting right on the edge of the severe. We're in the moderate right now. We're not in the severe yet. So just kind of give you a perspective of Western Kentucky.
That's great information. It 100% like an inch per week is ideal. I wish that happened every single year. But yeah, where we're sitting right now, I feel like it could get bad pretty quickly if we start seeing those 90-degree temperatures a little earlier in 2026. So, fingers crossed we get some of those major rainfall events, but man, we need these forecasts and outlooks to start looking a little better.
I'm really concerned about it because typically you look at our weather typically in Western Kentucky down here, and when we get this dry, I hate to say it, it usually takes a hurricane type of event to really break this kind of dry weather. Because almost all of our rains, it's really been crazy to sit there and watch the weather. And Indiana is getting the rain that gets Ohio River, and along the river, as you indicated, Union, Henderson, Davis are kind of getting a little bit of rain, and we get nothing, absolutely nothing. And so it usually takes a pretty big event to break that drought once it gets this dry here.
Yeah. Yeah. And I agree with you though. I mean, during the fall months, we'll look to the south and Gulf of Mexico and see if anything's brewing up down there. And I want to say I mentioned another webinar here recently, but I think Hurricane Isaac saved the soybeans or whatnot back in 2012. I know corn was already gone at that point, but yeah, we need something major. Last April, we had well, it was a flooding event in April last year, and you hate to see the flooding, but we need some significant rainfall, that's for sure.
it's kind of weird you say that flooding because last spring was the worst spring we've ever had trying to get anything done. Highway 69, major highway through the county here, it has to get really bad before the river gets to it. It's about a mile from the river. And I've seen maybe 3 or 4 inches of water get over it. Last year, we got 4 feet of water over the top of it. That's how bad the flooding got. So we don't even want to talk about last year.
Yeah, yeah. Been a 180-degree turn. So, yeah.
Do appreciate your update. I had seen a long range forecast. I thought it was a National Weather Service, and they had originally kind of indicating that the summer for Western Kentucky might be cooler than normal and maybe a little bit above normal precipitation. Yours is a little more moderate, I noticed, anyway.
They I'm not sure when National Weather Service came out with their update, but I think the seasonal outlooks for the summer were just changed at the end of April, on April 30th. So um, yeah, so
Darn, you kind of took away any hope that I had.
oh no, I don't want to do that. I don't. I've always been a glass half full kind of guy, but oh man, these dry conditions just keep on adding up, and it's not great. So
Well, I appreciate your update. Thank you.
appreciate it.
Any other
Anybody else?
questions?
Sorry.
No, go ahead. Well, thank you all. As we say in our first slides, if the drought worsens, we may have some special webinars, in between our monthly ones. So keep an eye out for those. Matt, Chip, any last words?
I don't have too much to add. I might just say I know Ron's on the call right now. Don't let the Reds fans see your hat right now on your picture there. So
Okay.
for people
Well,
that
Matt,
don't know,
thanks a lot for a very interesting review and summary, and yeah, putting this drought into perspective. I think when you go back to November, it puts it into a better perspective. It's not just the last few months we're talking about. It really does extend back to the beginning of winter.
Yep. Thank you.
All right, we're coming to the top of the hour, but thank you all, and we'll look to see everybody back here in June 4th. So
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it. We'll all do our rain dance.
Yep, thank you all.